interested in asking you this question because it's been something that I've been dealing with a lot more now that I've been, running my own business and really just not being in that safe bosom of a W-2 job like as an employee, and actually being like, okay, it's all on me. And I've always felt that you've had good stress management routines, and I want to ask you, how do you go about handling stress in difficult times, right? Because from what I've found out from my experience, like, handling stress is so important because there'll be times where you know what you have to do right now. It's like, okay, you're in a situation, you need to make some money, or you need to make this call, you got to get this product out, whatever. And I'll know what I need to do, but sometimes I won't have like the emotional energy to do it, where I'm just like, I have so much to do. I just want to go to sleep. I don't want to do this. Like, I'm tired, and where it'll build up over time. So let's talk about that. How do you manage stress? How do you get through difficult times?
Dude, probably, and to just kind of set the context, the most stressful times are times in which we have to change our behavior from one mode of doing things to another one, right? It's a transitional phase, right?
Correct.
And even stress, like at the gym, you put yourself under stress so that your muscles can grow. So it is part of the growing process. It's and like just like the gym, you need time to rest. You need time to like allow your muscles to heal. So in the same way that physically we understand that, right? We go to the gym, you rest, do your protein. I feel like psychologically and emotionally, it is a bit of a missed concept to us, because not only are we strong and capable and we're able to power through a lot of the like hard days, we just forget that sometimes we just need to decompress, just kind of like rest, not think about or do anything like that, and just take a step back and enjoy life, right? And part of so the way I kind of usually get into that mode is the last concept I want to kind of layer on this, right? So I'm using the gym metaphor to show, hey, the way we work as entrepreneurs is that we want to work all the time to make sure we can make everything work perfectly so that our business is always successful, right? So we want to do all that we can to make sure that we can get everything set up properly so that there's no possibility of failing, right? And so, like, that's similar to in the gym metaphor. If you worked out all the time and didn't rest, if you worked out all the time and didn't rest, you're not gonna grow your gains because you need time for your muscles to rest, reconstitute those movements.
Having to go back.
Dreading now, like, oh man, I'm still sore from yesterday.
What we doing this again? We did it yesterday.
Right? I'm like, Jesus. And so the other thing is to be able to let go. The art of letting go. Like the art of saying, I've done all I can. At this point, it is like whatever comes, right?
That's something I have a hard time with, where you probably see me do this too, where it's just like, I'll just be like, all right, I am tired and I'm at but can I let go? You'd always be like, hey man, just know you gotta sleep tonight. Just leave me alone. You always ask me, are you gonna go to sleep tonight? And I don't know. I don't know if I can let go, because I'll get in that mode where I'm just like, I have to get to a certain milestone where I feel like I accomplished what I set out to do. And when I leave things unfinished, that causes me a lot of like, stress. Like it makes me feel down, or
like you weren't capable of finishing it or doing it, and you didn't get to same gym concept, like, oh, I didn't do like 350 6 times, like I must be weak, I must be terrible, like at this, right? And it's
instead of listening to your body and knowing like, all right, if you push it anymore, you're gonna strain something, and then you won't be able to come back the next day. So that's what I've learned over time, where especially when I was a lot younger, and especially devouring all the what do you call it, that motivational content. It's like, oh, you gotta go harder. If you don't want to be successful as bad as you want to breathe, so it's just like, okay, you gotta do it. So now it's like, less is more type thing. So even coming back to the gym metaphor, where I've just been starting to think that like my approach to the gym now is not so much go all out and just kill myself in the gym. It's rather that do enough, right, and like push myself to the right point, you know. And finding that right point can be hard sometimes, but enough so I can come back the next day and the next day and be consistent. Like, can I do this? Not can I get through a crazy hard thing today, but how long can I do this hard thing for months, you know, so I could see the result. And yeah, I think that's where I've been coming more with the stress thing. It's hard though.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when to let go. Like, you used to tell me this a lot. You're like, so Poly 186, is there an end goal for this? Like, are you gonna be able to like stop doing this thing? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. Why would I stop? Like, I already love doing it, but it's the art of like letting go and being able to be like, I have done all I can today. Like, I just need time for myself. It's the concept of like, we had talked about this before, about like in terms of personal branding. When I started getting into personal branding, I didn't think of myself branding myself. I thought, oh yeah, Poly 186. So how do I brand Poly 186? Like, I was so one with my company that I didn't exist in my mind professionally. There was only one thing that existed, which was this abstract concept of a company that I had put together. And I forgot that I am the one who put the company and the concept together, gave it a name, dressed it nicely, and had it go out to the world and meet others. It was just that I forgot as me as a person, like me as an entrepreneur, me as a friend who you can sit here and talk to. I didn't take care of me. And how could I build this more complex thing, go the marathon, when I'm not even physically fit, mentally stable, and emotionally at a point where I can be able to reinvest myself back into my work? Because if I'm not able to reinvest myself back into my work basically falters for it, right? My work doesn't have the same enthusiasm, the same energy, the same quality, because it degrades over time, because I'm not filled with energy so that I can imbue my work with that same energy. So when people like saw my content, saw my work in the past, when I was totally emotionally drained, they're like, "You could do better." You remember you used to tell me that you could do better, and I'm like, "What? Okay, I mean, I guess like let me take some time off. Let me like and so part of it is like I to conserve my energy and just focus on doing something specific. Some of the tips that I do is like I don't disturb a lot. Like, don't disturb me, don't text me, don't hit me up, don't tell me
I've been adopting that a little more too now.
It's just
I have like a focus mode.
Yeah.
On the
Pixel and like Samsung's iPhones do that a lot too. But the whole concept around that is just that I need time to focus in and just pour my energy, get into a flow state, as Rodriguez usually says. I forgot his first name, but Joseph Rodriguez from YouTube says like, hey, you want to get into that flow state where you can channel your higher form and let that energy flow into your work, because your work is an expression of that higher form that you are kind of putting out.
Bring it to like literal example. Last year was pretty
stressful.
One of the more challenging years for both of us,
bro.
You had some tough times. How about like, what was your lowest moment last year, and how did you approach it? Like managing the stress of the moment, and then making sure you could do what was needed to be done.
Man,
some people freeze up in those situations.
So I found myself in Egypt with no income and dwindling funds, and so my wallet was just like slowly going down, and then I'm like, all right, I gotta make some money somehow, right? And so one of the things was that I just went back to the basics. Here are the basics for me. As a man thinketh, right? I start with books. Mentally, I start mentally framing and like structuring my mental self, like as reinforcing. Yeah.
Great book.
I think everybody should read it. It's not just about men. It's as you should think.
I never think about that it says as a man
thinketh. As a human thinketh, I get. And so mentally, you start off with mentally reinforcing yourself, because mentally you have to be there. Like, I had no money in a foreign country with no ability to speak their local language, which is Arabic. And so I have to make enough money to leave there and come to the US. And I didn't even have enough to buy a ticket. Like, I did, but I didn't think of it. Like, I didn't even look at the ticket prices until I started making money. And then I was like, I could have just left. But in my head, I was like, no. We're going to figure this out while we're here. So, as a man thinketh, then I started reading, like, some of the books that we read, like the Edinburgh Lectures. There's a few others. But it's to reinforce your psychology, your mental mind and your mental models. Hone in and be able, because your psychology, your mental framework, and how you think is the foundation you build everything from, right? So then I started doing that. And so, these books are free. I go to YouTube. I just play them on YouTube. I downloaded them on YouTube. I have it on Audible. Start with mentally reinforcing yourself and preparing yourself for a challenge. It is challenging to go from these stressful situations where you have nothing and you have to get to the next level, right? Yeah. And then physically, I started just doing push-ups and sit-ups and just like ab workouts at home because I couldn't even afford to go to the gym. So I'm like, all right, bro, I gotta, like, mentally I have to be there. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get there. Secondly, all right, since we're gonna do this and get there, I need to make sure my body isn't breaking down on the way there. My body's like my car to get there. So, I'm the driver. My body, my mind is good. He's sitting on the driver's seat. It's like, all right, buddy, my Toyota gonna make it. And so, the Toyota, my body is like, we gonna make it. Hey, did you check the tire pressure? So I started doing push-ups, like walking in the morning, just kind of like getting my body physically active, because the dopamine released from that allows me to continuously put energy into those things, right? And then those two things just kind of supplemented to me having both a healthy mental framework and a healthy biological framework, which then allowed me to then now, when I meet somebody, I'm like, okay, how can I help you solve the problem you have, right? So it's that sort of kind of professional mindset. The third thing would have been the soul, but that's so abstract. I don't even know how to put that. But to make money, to get myself from that situation, it was about relationships, right? So there was that aspect where I have to socially interact with people who speak English, who have opportunities, and who are able to be like, oh yeah, I actually need this. Can you be able to help me with this? The first thing I did was, it was actually a website for you, and then it was a website for somebody else who was a friend of a friend. So Sarah had a friend who needed a website for his UK company, and so I made that website, and then I made some money, and then I was like, oh, I can afford the gym.
Yeah, I remember you were just solving problems, and you're like, you didn't have the computer. I think you had to give your computer back because... Yep.
And so I had an iPad only, bro. I had to build a company only on an iPad.
Right. And then you're like, I learned cloud computing, and now I was like, yo, you're just solving the problem, and it's in front of you. And I think a lot of people get, overwhelmed. And I did want to say, if I throw my 2 cents in, there was this YouTuber that, I don't know if you've seen him. He's like an ex-CIA agent. And then he talks about his experiences, but also like what the CIA trained him, to do in different situations. And he talked about, how CIA trains people to handle stressful situations, because that could be the difference between life and death. If you get in a compromised situation where say like some people came and they're firing on the house or something like that, you're with one of the agents that you've set up an agent, and usually they use the word agent for an asset in another, if they're in a country and they're using somebody there would be an agent, so he's talking about that, and he's saying like what they found was that it's usually the overwhelm that gets people, and it gets them in a mental lock where they don't do the right thing, where they break down or they freeze up and they get killed. And so I was thinking about that a lot lately, and what you've been saying has really like brought that back into my head of like where you need to first analyze your situation and know where what's the scenario, so you can figure out what's the next best thing you can do right now. Like what's the next fastest thing you can do that's positive, right? So usually they'll tell them, obviously you need to get yourself out of danger. Take care of your body. You know, you can't do anything if you get shot. So take cover. You know what I'm saying? And then worry about whoever agent you need is like, where is he at? You know what I'm saying? And then how are you gonna protect yourself? And so just doing the next fastest thing. What's the looking around for the next best thing and focusing on that. Because I think when I thought about stressful situations, when
like, how do you handle it?
Yeah,
what's your framework?
It's been evolving. You know, usually, you know, it's always felt like I'm bigger than this.
Dude,
and
you
I can
brute force it.
Yeah, I can.
Like, you used to just be like, I'm strong. And I'm like,
gotta get done, do it. And then, so in that, for a long time, I was like, I don't think I can feel stress.
Yeah, bro, I was like, I don't think I'm that strong to just, like, crush my stress like that. I'm gonna figure out some other ways.
And then when it got on me was more like, you know, as my organization grew and I was more responsible for more people, and then I knew I couldn't rely on like a paycheck coming in every, you know, so my decisions weigh a lot more. That's when it started coming. It was like, oh my God, am I sure what I know what I'm doing, and this and that. And when decisions you make in confidence, like where you're like, I was confident about this, and then it doesn't pan out, and then your confidence starts shaking, right? Because I think before I was really confident in, I think I know how to handle any situation that'll come, right? And this time it's helped. Like I've needed to learn the skills of exactly what I'm talking about, understanding like, let me assess the situation. What can I fix right now? You know, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to save everything when you find yourself in a situation. What's the most important thing to save, right? What's the most important thing to handle? How do you get yourself in? I like you said that. This is your vehicle. You have to make sure you're good for the long haul. So, you know, what do I have to do to make sure I'm good? Because I can't turn into a shriveling, you know, like, oh my God. But I've had those moments where I'm just like, oh my God, I wake up and I think about all the stuff I have to do and the decisions that are looming. And then it's like, I don't want to get out of bed today. I can't do this.
I think that's what depression
do
is.
Dude, I think so.
I was like, bro, I can't afford that, bro. I thought about killing myself. I was like, bro, that's expensive. It's expensive for me just to kill myself, but it's also so much more expensive to get my body out of there to anywhere else in the world. I can't do that to my family. That I can't afford that. Okay, since I can't afford that option, because you know what I used to think? I'm like, yeah, you know, I can kill myself at any point. It's my life. It's my body. I have the choice.
Yeah, we're getting deep.
And when I didn't have that choice, like, that choice was too expensive. I was like, okay, I'm going to reframe. Let me make some money.
You know, there was some, like, situations where, like, on a plane, and, you know, when we're going through and I'm with my friend, and, you know, we're both pretty low on cash and everything, and we're on the plane going somewhere, and like, the plane was, like, super turbulent, right? And I was like, dang. And actually, the way that the guy landed, it was like he bounced it, and I was like, God, that was the hardest landing I've done ever. And I asked, because he wasn't in the same row as me, so I asked him like, dang, bro, this guy almost like crashed the plane. That was kind of wild. He was like, man, I was just thinking, man, if we get hurt or something, they're gonna have to compensate us. So I was like, yo, we are down bad, huh? Like, you were like, you're like, yo, hey, if something happens to me, at least that problem or like this money thing will go away, and they'll have to take care of it. That's where you've gone.
That's where your mind went automatically.
That's a level of stress, man. And you know, when people like Alex Hermosi talk about this stuff, and they're like, would you do it again? Was it like, you know, becoming an entrepreneur and stuff like that? And when I was listening to him at the beginning of my journey, you know, he would say like, honestly, no. You have to be really tolerant to pain and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, man, I know what you're talking about. I did not know what he was talking about. And now I feel like I know what he's talking about.
Now I'm like,
I was like, no, okay, there's a new level of how bad things can get, and how much like you have to actually deal with in entrepreneurial venture.
Honestly, I feel like the more we worked together, the more easier things were because we were just so strong. Like, I could depend on you figuring it out, and hopefully you could depend on me.
Our formula was like, it was
straight to the point.
We knew how we were gonna get money, and we knew what we needed to do, right?
To get money, and we did it, and then we got money, and
then
it was like, oh yeah, we win. Oh, this is easy.
But the new level of like, you're trying to establish something new. It's a blue ocean, you're trying to.
And that's just challenging.
That's very challenging.
You said something interesting that I don't want to lose. It was that reframe all the coming information and just be like, what do I need to do right now to get to this next level? Like, instead of like think of it as a fire hose. When you're sort of under so much stress, it's just so much information, so many things about so much. And so what you need to think about is like, what is the next step? I typically start off with breathe. That is the next step. I just need to breathe.
You probably need to breathe.
And then
definitely in the next minute.
Since I need, okay, we've got over that one.
Yeah.
Now let's refocus. Let's reframe. What is this problem? Is it money? Is it the fact that I need to solve this problem? What is this thing that
biggest problem?
What is the biggest, most immediate thing? I think I like how you said that. What is the most immediate thing I need to get done to make sure that I can get to the next step after that? Right. That hones in your ability to solve problems as a human into just a single thing, and you can tackle that single thing well.
And don't project into the future, because I think where I was like a lot of times, I'm the type of person who have like this overactive imagination. Like when I'm driving, and if there's like a car in front of me, I'm gonna think like Final Destination, like with the truck with the steel pipes. Like, what if that thing happens?
It happens, right?
Imagine viscerally that thing going through my windshield and I'm dying, and oh my god.
Yeah,
you jump into a potential future. So like with the stress, I felt like maybe before there wasn't any situation that I would imagine like, I would have so many other moves before it got that bad, right? And then in these situations, like, oh shit, if this move doesn't go right, if I don't get this client or other, I'm gonna have no money and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do, right? So fuck all of that. Let's not project and stress ourselves, because we're the one animal that will make ourselves suffer over
thoughts,
potentialities, and thoughts.
Yeah, it was just like.
So it's like, what here right now can I do, and let's focus on that and not like worry about, potential things that can
come like later. Potentially speaking, I can get hit by a car if I walk outside the house.
Right.
Am I not gonna leave the house? There's something I wanted to kind of bring up, because the whole video is about like, how do we manage stress to get to these higher goals? Because think about, we started off, I went to college for 1 year and then I just dropped out, right? Yeah. For you, it was like you went to college, but then you didn't use that degree, so we had to start from scratch. And even then, it was like we had the stress of like going over what our family was telling us to do, our friends, the social pressures. This is a different level to that, because we did that, and we were like, it's a good thing to have a friend who you can talk to and be like, bro, I'm going through this. And but we're working together on this. I wake up, I see you. Like, I remember waking up at 4 a.m. What was it? 4 a.m. Like 4 a.m. for success. We did that, and like having somebody who's there with you, who is also dedicated and able to like, it just gives you energy, because then you're like, oh, I gotta do it because like I see you do it. I'm not just gonna go back to sleep. Like, what the hell? Yeah. But then you deal with other people who just go back to sleep, and I'm like. And so, but like that, I want to bring that back up, because also a question I get a lot is, how do I handle like the volume and complexity of all the things I have to do and the stress that comes with it? And I'm like, partly having friends who are strong and capable, and I can be like, bro, I can talk to you about it, and you're like, dude, I'm experiencing the same thing, and you're like, yeah, well, here's what I'm thinking, and just being able to talk. I think this is why people have therapists, but I don't do therapists. I just have like good mental frameworks that I studied some psychology, and I can help myself through that.
You should try therapy.
When I'm rich, I'll think about it.
How much do they cost?
I mean, you can get a subscription, but the reason why I bring those things up is because I get the question of like, how did you guys get to where you got to, right? Because Because when people look at our lives, they're like, oh, you travel the world, you do all that. They see the results of it. They just don't see us staying up at night, like making sure that code is in, making sure that we're able to learn this, making sure you have to nail that contract. They don't see that part, and they think that is the easy part. But that is the hardest part. Right. Because those are the parts where the rubber hits the road. You gotta be about it. You gotta wake up and do it. And so when I talk to people, and when I actually analyze and talk to these people who ask me the same question, how do you get there? And I look at their lives, and they're not doing the things they need to get to that point. And I'm like, well, you're not gonna get there because you're not doing anything to get there. You're sitting there crying about you have all this stress and all these problems, and you don't do anything to solve the problems, to change your life, and you're continuously perpetuating the same stressful things that keep you in your same stressful situation. And so I think it's being proactive and being ready to change. Change is a stressful thing, but it is change that allows you to get to a point where you don't have that stress anymore. That's what change and the stress of change is, like going to the gym. You're in stress, but it changes your body to be adaptive. It's an adaptive trait that allows you to sustain that stress, and that stress becomes not normal, but you can overcome it. You're much stronger. That stress doesn't matter. There's the stress of like, my life sucks. I don't know what I'm doing with it. I have all this debt. I don't have any dreams. I have dreams. I don't know how to get there. And I am stressed about that. Those thoughts or the possibility of me being able to achieve my goals and my vision, that is so stressful about those possibilities of my future, how I can be successful. I want to travel, I want to do that. And you don't do anything. And so you live with that stress. Mm-hmm. And that stress ends up like having you just make mistakes and just like, you don't end up being happy because you don't change anything about your life, because you choose to keep the stress that you're familiar with rather than the stress that you're unfamiliar with that could lead you possibly to a better future.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That was a very complex thought about like, there's two types of stress. There's the stress we go through, which is the stress of change, of growing, of experiencing new things. When we travel, that's stressful. You gotta make sure your passport is right. You gotta make sure you're on time. Sometimes the airline is wrong. Sometimes the flight is late and you might miss your next flight. Sometimes you miss your next flight. That's stressful, but it's the good stress versus the stress where you are in the same routine and you're stressed because you're missing out on the possibility of you living a better life. There's that stress where I see it in a lot of people. It's kind of a regret stress where you're like, I know I can do better things.
It's like a helpless stress because like there's the one that you're talking about. It's like when you're under stress, but you know the moves and you know you have the capability. You know what you need to do and you know you can do it. So you know it's going to be hard, but it'll get done, right? So it's stressful, but you know it's a good building you up stress. And then there's a stress where you're going through pain, you don't know how to, or even you don't choose to, or you don't know how to assess the situation or even find the next move, why it's going on. You know, some people are like, you know, will complain that, you know, I'm poor and I don't have this or that, or it's difficult for me to, you know, like afford my apartment or take my kids to school, whatever. All that stuff that comes with the normal everyday life. And like you said, nobody does, they'll just sit and complain about it, but they're in the purgatory of like, this will never. It's like they're waiting. It's either like, I'm like, are you waiting for somebody to come?
Jesus is the solution.
Are you going to wait for somebody to come and change this for you?
Pray harder.
Do you expect a politician to hear you on Twitter?
It's the government's fault. It is everybody's fault other than myself. This guy, like, sorry to cut you off.
Okay, and even if they do, I'm like, all right. If you expect the government to change this, like, go advocate and like do something. At least I would respect you if you do something about it, right? But there's a lot of people who are just like, bills, whatever. And they in this, what do they say? A lot of people lead the lives of silent suffering, and
it's like it's I always kind of think about it. You choose the suffering you want. You can choose the suffering of progress and growth, or decaying and dying. Because when you don't change, you're changing. You're just changing. You're regressing. You're not you're not growing, evolving, and developing yourself.
I have a level up on this. You said like it's good to have friends to be able to talk about this, and I'm really fortunate. I have you to bounce off these ideas as well. To a lot of people don't have that, and I don't know what like people can do. Obviously, you can go out, network, find mentors, and
do
stuff like
something.
that. Actually, somebody hit me up on LinkedIn, and they just wanted me to help them with they want to become an engineer and stuff like that. And I was like, sure. I mentored them for a few months, and people who have gone through this are very likely to do that. If I see somebody who can remind me of myself where I was, I'll usually try to help them out as I can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one way to do it. On a level up, where I've been seeing is like, okay, you know what you need to do. You're in a difficult situation. You've done those steps. Now you know the stuff that you need to do. Now there's still a prioritization of where things need to fall in place, and you don't know which thing is the most important thing to work on right now. What I've been finding it difficult is that maybe people who are willing at our level will be like, I've been feeling like this week, it feels like the Matrix 4, where the guy is in this like weird mundane position where he's comfortable, he's doing his job, and he's like, he knows something is wrong, but there's just these distractions, and he can't get out of the Matrix, to be his, where he
to be the one.
Right. And so I was thinking about that a lot. And
was he afraid of being the one?
There was something keeping him back if he kept on doubting who he was.
But it was himself. It wasn't that it was the system of the Matrix. It was... I love that movie, first of all, because I made a video about it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, man.
It's like, you're the only person on the internet who has a positive video.
Because I watched it and I was in Thailand, and I'm like, man, I feel like the one, but I'm just stuck in my current base form. And so I watched it.
I do like the first half of that movie a lot. I always think about it so much of, there's, because Neo became Neo, and then he goes back to the cubicle.
He
and
went back to the beginning,
and he's just like, wait a second, I'm somebody greater than this, and he's trying to break out of that. Where you could argue maybe he put himself back in there, but that was really fascinating. And so I've been trying to see like what keeps us stuck, and I realized that there's so many things that need doing, and you're doing them, but maybe you're not doing them the right thing. Like the thing, and a lot of times the right thing feels like, and there's moments where I'll wake up and I'm like, oh no, I'm supposed to be doing this, like I'm supposed to be meditating more, taking the time to see where I'm at and like really look around and see what's going on.
Like be more aware,
right? And so I can make better decisions about where I want to go, right? And then you get stressed out, and then you fall back into I gotta get this task done, I gotta get this task done, I gotta go to my job, I gotta do the thing, and then funny. You start getting back into the lull to sleep.
It's basically, bro, I think of it as there's a routine and a way that the system is designed where it puts you back to sleep. In the sense that it's a treadmill where once you wake up, you open your phone, you see all those messages of people being like, hey, I need this, I need that. Or you remember you have a meeting, you remember, then those thoughts come back, and you're just like, and then you just go and you just go back to
you become an agent for the system.
And so now you have to be like,
and now you're in the system, and the system has you on the treadmill.
And you just run all day, and then at the end of the day, you're
like, wake up for a little bit. It's like, what happened? I woke up this morning, I had so much potential, and
all I could do was this. And so, dude, that's so good, because I think change is so hard, because I came back from the gym, and I don't know if I talked to my mom about this, because like when I travel with my mom, I play Alex Hormozi's like books. I just play audiobooks. Remember like how we used to?
Yeah.
So I just play those books for her, and then she starts like learning more about them, right? So I came back and I'm like, I thought about what these guys are putting in their books, and essentially what this video and what the stream of consciousness right now is. It is that there's a point in the future. You called it the something mate, like the way you map your way to a point in the future you want to end up in. So like earlier we talked about the treasure map concept, where you create a treasure map of like the dream outcome you want to get to, and then you make decisions in reality to get there. And so what these guys are showing us, Alex Hormozi or Dan Coe, is their path to where they got to that point in reality, where they're making $3 billion.
Reality time matrix.
Yep, right, yeah, the conscious. Wait, say it again.
Conscious reality time
matrix. Yeah, and how you travel through it to that point. Because you read his books, he's talking about conscious experiences he has that he had at the moment, and the choices he made in each of those ranks of reality to get to that point he is. And so I was like, damn.
So you have to visualize, not, just in the 3D, but this abstract place in the future that exists. And the more, it's possible, where you're like thinking the ways you can get there.
So
creating
when we wake up, and if you think how we wake up and how we actually get to those points, is that we wake up and we look around and we see we prioritize the decision and the thing we have to do to get there, right? So if it's to close this client, you practice, you train, you rehearse, you make sure you look through your notes, and you go there, you're prepared, you crush it, right? And so in that same way, these abstract concepts of like, okay, we're going to travel to that point in reality, we start looking at Airbnbs, we start making travel plans, we start looking at like, oh, here's how like this works, and you're mapping it. Think about it. You're mapping it, you're making the decisions.
And sometimes you don't understand that the trade wind of emotion is blowing this way.
Yep.
So you have to make sure you don't go that way, because it's like, if you go and do this task, is what I've been seeing recently, is like, dang, if I start off and I'm just programming on a client's project, and I know it's hard, and it's probably gonna get me down emotionally because programming does that to you.
Baby.
Then how am I gonna go and make content later? So I'm like, okay, maybe I start making content where I'm high, the trade wind is taking me to a higher emotional plane. So then I can come down and land. As I go back to programming, I can come from a high instead of try to like go upwind.
Yeah, that's way harder.
Yeah, and it's all abstract. It's like not a real thing, but it is a real thing.
Yeah, because emotionally, remember what I said earlier? It was like we channel our higher forms. It's the energy thing, because we talked about energy conservation, recharging, and making sure that when you go to create, let's say, the content, because content is a lot about vibes, energy transfer, and like ideas transfer, right? So like our energy transfers into the audience, right?
And so you can't go with a low vibe. I can't go with like a, because sometimes I'll finish my day's work and it's like, I kind of got stuff done, and I kind of like made my I have to tell them, hey, it's gonna take another day. I'm already down. Okay, now I'm gonna make some content that I want people to be excited about.
Yep, it's just
that's
like
gonna
a
be
lot
hard.
harder.
I'm going to sleep.
And you wake up and you're like, oh man, I can make content about this, about that, because you wake up with the.
Then you see your notification. I have to get work done. Oh no, is it too late?
Is it too man?
And that's the matrix. And
that is the matrix.
Don't get the content
and
done.
Then you don't get the content done. You don't build your personal brand. You end up in the same loop, and then you end up thinking, why am I still here? I'm capable. We see people making content that I'm like, dude, we did that like 4 years ago.
True.
And we're like, okay, let's just produce and create systems. Like we already do that. We already do that really well. Create systems. We learn about how to do these things, and then we continuously do them until we get to a point where we're so proficient at it that we don't have to think about it as much anymore. Right?
Yeah, and I keep on going, like, I feel like I've solved these problems, and it's always come to meditation, and because meditation is, I'm starting to look at it as more like waking up and being aware, right? Because there's this routine stuff we're talking about. Oh, we have to get into the system and do our work in the system and do all what's required of us in the system. But there's this moment, if you can step back, like you said, breathe,
breathe.
Look
There you
around.
go. See, it was the breathing thing. It was like,
you
man.
breathe and you look around and you're just like, where am I? What am I doing? Why am I doing?
Yeah.
You know, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing here in this moment?
Yeah.
And can I recalibrate? And I've told myself this, but it's like you just get, because the system it feels like, all right, it's giving you a task. You can turn off your brain and go back to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But when you meditate and you're like, oh, okay, I want to be this and I want to go there. And I know, you know what? It is maybe making the content, or I have to reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, or I have to do this thing that's unfamiliar. It might be difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Or unnatural or uncomfortable for me to do. But the system says, hey, this is good too. And you're supposed to be doing your job, you know? So I think that could be the disconnect, and it's just like taking that time to just like disconnect from that and refocus, and not just going to meditation blind, but also like having those like notes and totems, like things to keep you grounded. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to feel like the Memento character. Mm-hmm. You know,
yeah, where he has to spin the thing to check if he's awake or not.
No, actually, not Inception. I'm talking about Memento.
Oh, dude, I don't know why I thought Inception. Immediately it was because the sleeping thing. I was the totem. I was like, you're gonna spin it, but you said Memento. Inception.
So Memento, you remember he has his memory thing.
Yeah.
So he has to keep on writing on himself to remind himself. So that's what it feels like. Because I'm like, there's something I wanted to do and become, and like there's a way I wanted to be, or you know, there's an energy I wanted to go into this year with, or a way I wanted to do things. But the system and the old patterns that are so fired and deep wired into your brain can take over and just literally put you to sleep. Yep. And literally be like, but I'm doing my job, I don't have to think. And it's just like, but
it's
you
comfortable,
find yourself in the same
it's familiar, place. It's safe.
Right. So where I've been realizing is like, oh, I need to write things down. So if I do, like when I do a meditation, I can go look, like this was the image of what I was trying to become, or who I am, who I really want to be, right? It's like, I want to be somebody who has this level of income, this level of business. I want to talk to people like this. I want to carry myself around with this kind of energy. Ah, right, that's me. I'm the one. I'm that. You know what I'm saying?
I love that, man. That was cool.